Hey, my name is Mr. X. Welcome to the Extreme Channel. We are giving away $1,000 statues to you guys. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. First of all, I want to introduce you, or let you introduce yourself. I'm Mr. X, and most people watching probably know that, simply because you tuned into my channel. But today we have a very special guest, and I have a plethora of questions for this guy. Other than people reading the description in the intro, David, they probably don't know much about you. So why don't you give us a little elevator speech about David, and then I'm going to start diving in right away with some questions because I love your history.
I've been working in the toy industry since 2003. I started as a designer for Marfarlane Toys. I worked there for about 3 years or so as both a designer and sculptor, and then I moved on to Hasbro for a couple years. About 11 and a half years after that, I worked at Neca, mostly doing sculpting, some designing. And as of 2021, I went out on my own and did my own company, Creative Beast Studio, full time. Right now, we're specializing in dinosaur action figures, and hoping to expand into the sci-fi market with the Cyberzoic line that I have coming up soon.
Yeah, and as a little bit of background, David's one of the people on David's team reached out to me. Then I started reading more about David, and this is what got me. And I think the viewers of my channel will really get this. These are, he mentioned he worked with Marfarlane and Hasbro, but these are some of the projects he's worked on, which just absolutely blew my mind. Obviously, with Marfarlane Spawn, we all know that.
Oh, yeah.
But, Dragons, Fantasy, Simpsons, Predator, Aliens, Terminator 2, Pacific Rim, and there's a whole bunch more of that. And I was just like, then I started to get really interested. I'm like, wow, that's my forte. That's my passion. Based on your education, I think you and I kind of grew up in the same era.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, and to me, that was one of the greatest eras, especially when you get into some of these creatures and intellectual properties that we own.
So I was a child in the 80s and then a teenager in the 90s. To me, that was an ideal time to grow up if you're a creative person, because in the 80s, you had the whole 80s toy boom. And then in the 90s, you had the big video game revolution going on. So, it was a huge influence on my creativity and what I wanted to do.
And I have teenage children, and I always tell them, you guys have no idea what it was like. So growing up, we read comic books and had to visualize what was happening, where they get to see it on the cinematic film, stuff that we never thought was possible. So you started Creative Beast Studio in 21, is that right?
No, actually, that was working at NECA and running Creative Beast Studio at the same time.
Okay.
Pretty much the whole time I was there. It's just that the first part of it was just model kits. I was doing a lot of dinosaur model kits, and that's how it was up until 2016 when I did my first Kickstarter for the Raptor series, and that's when things started changing, and I started seeing this as an opportunity to start a toy company.
So I'm really, really curious, going through your background in education, a lot of comics, a lot of fantasy, mythical type stuff. And then all of a sudden, not only are you full-blown into dinosaurs, but one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I took away is that you're very much about the scientific accuracy of the dinosaurs.
Yes.
And I didn't see that anywhere in your background. I didn't see, paleontology study or, loved dinosaurs as a kid.
My childhood experience with dinosaurs was really Dino Riders.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so that was, I think I was around 8 or 9 years old, and I had quite a few, but I was just fascinated by, because to me those looked realistic, and I think the intention was that they were accurate. Yeah, so that was a big influence for me. That was always one of my favorite toy lines, along with Transformers and He-Man.
Back to your Cyberzoic line. So, cyber, is there some type of futuristic element with the dinosaurs or not?
Yes. So it takes place in the distant future on another planet. So basically, in a nutshell, the concept is that a very small population of our species exists on this other planet. They have limited resources, but they're mostly scientists, and they're not heavily armed. They don't have a lot of other resources, like as far as defense goes, and they have to kind of survive in this hostile environment. They basically have everything they need to create things through genetics. So what they do is they kind of have this library of wildlife from from Earth that goes back millions of years, and they're basically just choosing whatever animals can help them survive.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
and that's why we end up with the mightiest animals that have lived on Earth, to combat the threats of this planet, which are what we call dragons, and they don't want us there. The story picks up about 300 years after they've been there, and the humans have basically won. They're taking over the planet. They're terraforming it. They're introducing invasive species. So it calls into a lot of things like, do we deserve to take over another planet? And we're taking over at a fairly high rate. A lot of their animals are now going extinct because of us. We, on the other hand, are just thriving. So that's the general premise. And once there is peace, once people have survived, and once we've established a new population, what happens? We've got no one to fight, so we start fighting ourselves. That's where the story picks up, is with the first conflict, with the first war.
Yeah, this is really important for viewers, because what people who weren't alive in the 80s or they were too young in the 80s, they don't understand is that when different toy lines or action figures came out, they had to have storylines behind them, extensive storylines.
Oh, yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand is a lot of the characters that we love in cartoons and movies, they started as action figures with, to your point, these type of storylines, because we would purchase the action figures as children or sometimes even as adults because of those storylines in conjunction with the characters. But nowadays it's like people think of Transformers, they're like, oh, that's because there's movies about them. It's like, no, they started as action figures, and countless lines. I love that you're doing that. But your current line, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's just really dinosaurs. It doesn't have that type of story behind it, or does it?
No. They're meant to represent scientifically accurate dinosaurs. That was something that I felt I could contribute to this industry, because it was lacking in it. We do have the Jurassic World, the Jurassic Park stuff, but I feel like the target audience is a bit young, and they're a bit stylized. So I wanted to bring something that was a bit more based on reality, more based on scientific accuracy. Now, obviously, we don't know what color most of them were, so that has to be sort of, just guessed. But that's part of the fun, right? With dinosaurs, like, we know some bits, and the other bits we have to just kind of, speculate. So that's it's a lot of fun. That being said, I always was hoping that it could be the foundation for something more. And that's what Cyberzoic is.
One thing I love about this is it, just as much as it is there to purchase the products, there's tons of educational stuff on here. I was on here for 5 minutes, and I found out like 5 things I didn't know. Like, how many horns does a Triceratops have? That blew my mind. I was sure it was 3. But yeah, so make sure to check out his website, everybody. It's not only for some of the cool products, which we're going to talk a little bit about, but also, like I said, half of it's about education of the dinosaurs, which I think kind of goes back to what you were saying. You're in this for that reason, and I like that a lot.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I want to glorify and promote is natural history in its truest form. I see it a lot. You see a lot in Hollywood and popular media. It has to get distorted. We have to have our animals turn into monsters and things like that so that we can sell. But I don't think that's necessary. I think that we can treat them like animals and present them that way. To me, and I'm super familiar with pop culture, I'm super familiar with fiction, everything. Natural history is way more inspiring to me than anything we've created. I'm approaching it from that standpoint and trying to bring that to this story and to my work and everything like that.
Jumping subjects here. So most of your current pieces are about 1/18th scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you plan to continue that with the future line, the Cyberzoic line?
Yeah, because it's a really good scale. It was a scale that originally became popular with Star Wars, obviously, and expanded into Real American Hero G.I. Joe, and and just kind of kept going since then. And the reason is because you can get a pretty decently articulated human figure plus vehicle-sized accessories. So that works well with the dinosaurs because you can get a wide range of species and have them all be in scale with each other.
So in kind of the comic collectible world, which I'm sure you're very familiar with as well, there's two collectors and some that kind of merge both. And one is like statue collectors who buy statues with static poses. And then the other one really fall into the realm of like 1/6 scale. Hot Toys is a big brand for that. Because again, very, very similar articulation, a lot of posing. So what's your typical customer? Is it adults? Is this a child? You know, is there a market for children for this?
My target is adults, and even on the packaging, it says recommended for ages 15 and up.
Okay.
I know of plenty of people who are younger than that really love the toys as well. You know, the adult collector market has become so big in the last 10 or 20 years, and I think it's a lot because of our generation. Like, we just, everything that we loved from when we were kids, and we just kind of grew up with it, right? So
well, and don't forget, we finally got money. You know, as a kid, you didn't have money like this, so
that helps so much. Yeah.
So as we're closing up here, David, what else can you tell us about Creative Beast Studio, about yourself? So right now you have, I saw over 92 different products on there. When do you anticipate the Cyberzoic line to begin? Is that going to be this year, next year? Do you have a time frame on that?
Well, we're going to start the Kickstarter a week from today. Today's Tuesday. It's going to be next Tuesday on October 3rd. You know, we're going to lead off with a somewhat modest offering with a big dragon and a saber-toothed tiger.
Okay, cool.
And an Allosaurus. And then the Allosaurus and the saber-toothed tiger will come with, they'll be offered with a human character plus armor. If that gets funded, then we have a lot of stretch goals planned. So I'm pretty sure we can have the first wave out within about a year.
So for everybody watching, I'm going to have a direct link to the Kickstarter in the description of this video. Today, go down, click on that link. You can check that out. I'm also going to have a link for Creative Beast Studio. So like I said, definitely check out the site, not only the current products that are offered, but some of the not only the history about David, which is pretty cool, which is what got my attention, but those learning facts. I mean, just really cool stuff about current, or not current dinosaurs. They're not current anymore, but the non-Cyberzoic line. But it's pretty neat. So I'm gonna have a link there. They're non-affiliate links. That means if you click on them, I don't even know. I get no kickback. So I'm not trying to sell you on something. It's something worth checking out for sure. I quite enjoyed it. All right. Well, I really appreciate David. Like I said, in full transparency, I'm sure what I knew about you is probably what you knew about the Extreme channel. Very little knowledge, but I think that's what's great when you have, I'm a creator of content. You're a creator of a lot of different things to really, meld together and get, it's funny how we see the world very similar, but we do very different things. But we're all about collectibles, and I think that's great. So I appreciate your time. Again, everyone, please check out the links in the description below and see if it's anything that interests you. It definitely interests me. So, David, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate it.
As we try to grow this channel, we like to reward you guys for watching and subscribing. So because of that, every 5,000 milestone when it comes to subscribers, we give away a couple $1,000s worth of statues. We've actually given away over 20 statues. To win one was easy. First, you got to be subscribed to the channel. You'll get bell notifications when videos drop. Each video that drops, you want to make a comment on those videos. We pick a random video, we give away statues. Based on the comment, you can say whatever you want. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. Huge thanks to David and Creative Beast Studios. Definitely check out their stuff in the link below, but make sure to stay tuned because we actually had almost an hour-long interview where we dove in about Transformers and sculpting and so much other cool stuff, and that's going to launch very soon as well. But make sure to support that Kickstarter and their website. Thanks, everybody. Take care.